Well, the top story at this hour is from the Supreme Court. Sahara has thrown in the towel before the Supreme Court, saying it is unable to find buyers for its properties. The Supreme Court has asked SEBI to take charge and sell all those assets where the creditors do not have any claim. We'll get you... Okay, we have Prerna Baruah joining in now with the details. Prerna, 86 properties attached, which are valued at a reported amount of 40,000 crore rupees. Can we say Sahara has finally accepted defeat?
Well, in fact, Kritika, Sahara themselves have been saying that they have not been able to sell their property since the last 2 years, and that they have not received any buyer for all their properties in the last 2 years. So indeed, Sahara, the council did point this, to the Supreme Court that why not SEBI now take charge of all their assets and try and sell all their properties. And after this observation is which the Supreme Court did take a note of Sahara's plea and has directed the market regulator SEBI to now sell Sahara's unencumbered properties worth 40,000 crore rupees. Now remember that Sahara's Ambi Valley property is not included in this list of 86 properties. I believe all Sahara's housing projects and land banks across the country will be put up for sale by the market regulator. Now, in fact, the Supreme Court has said that the SEBI will undertake the process of selling of Sahara's properties under the supervision of Justice B.N. Agarwal, and the Sahara Group will be duly informed about the steps taken during the sale, and also an expert, SEBI will appoint an expert agency for the valuation of 86 properties. In fact, Sahara did point out before the Supreme Court that they are unable to sell all their properties on its own, and that SEBI should take charge now. So clearly the next date of hearing now is 27th of April. The Supreme Court has not given any timeline to which SEBI should complete the sale process. Back to you.
All right, Prerna, thanks for that. Just to get you a sense of the kind of properties that are attached so far, it seems there's development rights of 313 acres of land in Mumbai's Ambi Valley, which has not been attached yet, but 106 acres of land of Versova in Mumbai, 764 acres of land in 10 cities across the country, 191 acres of land in Lucknow, 170 acres of land in Lucknow again. So these are the kind of land banks that have been so far attached. We don't know if the other 86 properties, but let's understand how things will pan out going forward. Sandeep Parekh, founder of Finsec Law Advisors, joins in now with the details. Sandeep, take us through what lies ahead now. Clearly, SEBI will be taking over those 86 properties, which doesn't include the really lucrative properties, including Ambi Valley, Grosvenor House, New York Plaza. What in that case would lie ahead, and how will SEBI go across with the stake sales?
So, essentially, the whole process of attachment of property is a very convoluted and painful process, which takes years, if not decades. But I think here the situation is quite different. Here Supreme Court itself has ordered this attachment and sale of properties. So we can assume that with the exceptions which you listed, all the other properties would likely be sold. And of course, they've mentioned that a reserve price should be maintained, which is some 90% of the rateable value in that area. So I think going forward, they should be able to at least garner a sufficiently large number. I'm not really sure why it was argued or why Ambi Valley and other properties are not attached. But I think it's a good beginning, because almost all the assets of this company are really in either land banks or in real assets which they own.
Sandeep, is 40,000 crore a realistic amount? Plus, there is a provision wherein they can't sell below 90% of the total of the circled rate. Will that stop, or won't that be a huge hiccup from actually going through with the sale? Because given the valuation, and you saw what happened with KFA House, do you expect the stake sale to be smooth?
No, so I think they're very different propositions. KFA House, I think really we're looking at valuation which was very fantastic valuation which banks must have used at the time they'd given the loan, because it's nowhere close to the current market value, 90,000 rupees and all that. Here we are talking about rateable values, which are really, property values which are usually much below the market price, which is used for assessing, let's say, property tax and all that. So my guess would be, it should 90% of that value should not be, would certainly not be unachievable.
Hi Sandeep, this is Nayantara joining this conversation. I want to talk to you about this circle rate. In your history, in your experience, have you ever seen the Supreme Court actually say sell properties less than the circle rate, it's okay up to 90%? And my second part of this question is, isn't this going to have tax implication for the buyer? Because there certainly are that in the Finance Act.
No, sir. Circle rate presumably talks about the valuation of property for property tax purposes, which is usually based, which is slightly dated value. So it would typically be substantially below the market rate. As I said, it should not be such a difficult target to achieve, and I think I'm not very sure of precedents which go by circle value, but it's, I think, a fairly common means of fixing reserve price at the circle rate.
Have you seen distress sales take place even by a regulator below the circle rate? Has that happened before?
No, sir. As I said, circle rates are fairly low numbers. They are nowhere connected to current market price. Yes, certainly, many sales do take place because if you look at circle rates, if they're, let's say, 50% or 60% of market price, 90% of that would be extremely attractive. So again, it'll depend from property to property, but usually circle rates are substantially below market price. So I think 90% of that should be a fair reserve price, and which should be achievable according to me.
All right, Sandeep, thank you so much for joining in with those details. We'll keep exploring various assets of that important story through the day, but let's